The camera opens on a mist-covered Scottish estate, the kind of place where legends are born and forgotten. A lone figure steps through the fog, tall, poised, wrapped in a Dior gown that glimmers like moonlight against stone walls. Her name is Fraser, a real-life aristocrat who traded her castle for catwalks, and then, just when the world began to notice her, vanished without a trace. In the late 1990s, she was the face every designer wanted: Dior, McQueen, Hermes. Her beauty carried the weight of old nobility. Her stare, that distant, untouchable kind, made her unforgettable. But unlike her peers who chased fame, Honor seemed to walk the runway as if she didn't belong there at all, as if she knew something the industry didn't. And then, one day, she disappeared. No scandal, no headlines, just silence. Years later, she would resurface, not under flashing lights, but beneath the calm glow of gallery walls in Los Angeles, curating art instead of becoming it. This is not a story of a fall from grace. It's the story of a woman who chose a different kind of grace, the kind that comes from walking away before the world can define you. Before the flashing lights and the front rows, there was silence. The kind of silence that fills old stone halls when history starts to fade. Honor Fraser was born in 1973, not into fame, but into lineage. She was the daughter of Lord Lovat's clan, a Scottish noble family whose bloodline stretched back centuries, woven through war, politics, and poetry. Her childhood home, Beaufort Castle, stood proudly on the banks of the River Beely, surrounded by mist and myth. But even legends crumble. By the time Honor came of age, the Fraser estate was drowning in debt. The castle that had once symbolized power was sold to pay what her family owed. Newspapers in Britain wrote about the downfall of the Frasers, the once mighty family now forced to auction off portraits of their ancestors. Amid that slow unraveling, Honor learned something most models never do: what it means to lose a world before you've even built one. She wasn't the typical society girl. Friends described her as a tomboy, the kind who would rather roam the Scottish countryside with hunting dogs than attend debutante balls. She once said, "I was more interested in doing my own thing outdoors, with guns, not makeup." That restlessness, that quiet defiance, would later become her signature on the runway. Her path into fashion wasn't planned. After a short internship at British Vogue, someone suggested she try modeling. It was supposed to be temporary, a way to explore the world outside her lineage. But the industry saw something magnetic: a face carved by heritage, eyes that looked like they'd seen another century. In a decade obsessed with glamour and grit, Honor Fraser embodied both. When she first stepped into a London casting call, wearing her natural auburn hair and pale Scottish skin, the agents whispered, "She looks like she belongs in a painting, not a photo shoot." That was exactly what made her unforgettable. From the ruins of a fading aristocracy, a new kind of icon was born, one who carried the elegance of the past into the chaos of modern fashion. The transformation was almost cinematic. One moment, Honor Fraser was a quiet intern at British Vogue. The next, she was walking into casting rooms in Paris and Milan, her name whispered like a secret. Designers didn't just see a model, they saw a vision. Her beauty was different. It wasn't the commercial polish of 90s supermodels. It was something untouchable, aristocratic, almost eerie in its calm. Alexander McQueen once described models like her as porcelain figures that carry a story. Honor embodied that. With her pale skin, high cheekbones, and the kind of stillness that made photographers hold their breath, she looked like she'd stepped out of another century. By 1996, she was walking for Christian Dior, Givenchy, Hermes, McQueen, and Galliano. names that defined the decade. In the autumn-winter haute couture 1997 show for Dior, she appeared in an ivory gown that shimmered like frost, her posture as regal as her ancestry. The audience didn't know they were watching someone who'd once lived in a real castle, but they felt it. She didn't play royalty, she was it. Her magazine appearances followed. LUK, Vogue Italiano, Marie Claire. She was labeled the aristocrat who conquered couture. But even as fame grew, honor seemed detached from it. Photographers noted how she rarely lingered backstage, how she preferred silence to small talk. She wasn't chasing the high of fame. She was observing it, as if she knew it would never last. Her peers, Naomi, Kate, Amber, thrived in the chaos, their names shouted by paparazzi. Honor was the opposite, soft-spoken, polite, almost mysterious. Her walk was precise, her gaze distant. It was that restraint that made her unforgettable. One journalist wrote, "She walks like she's protecting a secret." And maybe she is. But success came with a strange kind of loneliness. The world saw glamour. She felt the echo of everything she'd left behind. Late-night flights, hotel corridors, and endless fittings blurred into one continuous performance. Modeling gave her freedom, but also erased the world she once knew. Still, for a brief moment, Honor Fraser was exactly where fashion wanted her to be, at the center of the spectacle, carrying the elegance of old Europe into a new, chaotic century. She was proof that grace didn't have to scream. It could whisper and still command the room. For someone who had once embodied grace under the brightest lights, Honor Fraser's disappearance came like a whisper. There was no public announcement, no tabloid headlines. She simply stopped showing up. In the late 90s, the world of fashion was growing louder. Louder clothes, louder personalities, louder egos. The rise of celebrity culture began to consume what once belonged to artistry. For someone like Honor, who had always valued mystery over exposure, it became exhausting. She once said in an interview, "Modeling can make you feel like you exist only when someone else is looking at you." Behind the calm facade, she was already drifting away. While others were chasing campaigns and covers, Honor was studying literature at La Sorbonne and exploring the art scene in Paris. The world thought she was taking a short break. In reality, she was walking towards something entirely different. Her peers moved into a new era: reality TV, perfume lines, celebrity marriages. Honor was nowhere to be found. Her name faded from casting lists. Designers who once adored her didn't even know where she had gone. It wasn't rejection, it was retreat. To those who remembered her, her absence felt deliberate. A quiet act of rebellion against the idea that beauty should belong to the public. She'd grown up watching her family lose a castle because of pride and publicity. Maybe this time she wanted to keep something for herself. Some say the industry changed too fast for her kind of elegance. Others believe she simply got tired of pretending. Perhaps the truth sits somewhere in between. Because for all its glamour, the fashion world is merciless. When a new face appears, the old one vanishes, not with drama, but with silence. Honor chose that silence, and in doing so, she became even more mysterious. By the time most people realized she was gone, she was already living a new life, on another continent, in another world. Los Angeles, a city built on illusion, where she would finally learn to control her own narrative. In Los Angeles, she was no longer the girl who walked for Dior. She was the woman who curated silence. Honor Fraser opened her own contemporary art gallery, a minimalist space on South La Cienega Boulevard that bore her name, Honor Fraser Gallery. The walls were white, the light was soft, and the noise of the fashion world was replaced by the stillness of art. Here, she wasn't the subject anymore. She was the storyteller. The gallery became known for championing bold, unconventional artists, names like Cause, Kenny Scharf, and Glenn Kino, works that challenged conformity, much like she once did on the runway. Visitors who recognized her would sometimes whisper, "Isn't that the model from Dior?" But Honor had already rewritten her identity. The girl who once embodied old-world grace had evolved into a woman shaping the future of art. She traded couture gowns for clean lines and conversations about meaning. And in that quiet transformation, she found what the spotlight could never give: ownership of her own image. It wasn't a comeback. It was freedom. Today, Honor Fraser lives far from the chaos of runways and flashbulbs. Yet somehow, her presence still lingers like an unfinished poem in the world of fashion. Her gallery in Los Angeles has become a sanctuary for artists who, like she once did, live between elegance and rebellion. To the industry, she's remembered not for scandal or excess, but for mystery. A woman who turned her back on fame and built something quieter, more enduring. In a world that constantly asks women to be seen, Honor chose instead to be understood. And maybe that's what made her truly unforgettable.